Have you been eyeing up that cottage country getaway, dreaming about buying a cottage, but just thinking there's no possible way that that can happen to you? I'm going to tell you today that that might be in reach for you now, and that's because prices are in free fall. There's more cottages exploding onto the market than there have been in ages. Right now, we're seeing an opportunity that we probably haven't had in more than 20 years in the cottage market. Hi there, my name is Marcy, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in the Muskoka, Parry Sound, Kawartha Lakes areas, and give you an idea of what is happening in general in that cottage country market in Ontario. So why are all these cottages exploding onto the market and why do we have so much inventory, more than we've had in many, many years? Well, there's really three things. The first one is we have kind of a post-pandemic hangover, so to speak. People have lost their dream of being able to stay up north and work, with hundreds of thousands of people having to go back to work. They're just feeling like they can't do the commute anymore. I think that what happened was during the pandemic, everybody kind of had this dream that they could move out of the city, they could live in their cottage, and they could still do their job. And now we're finding a lot of people just can't do that, and they're having to go back to their job and back to the office. Another thing, of course, that happened was this interest rate explosion. So during the pandemic, you may recall that, money was almost free. You could get, a loan for like 1%, 1.5%, really crazy rates. You could use your HELOC, your home equity line of credit at a very reasonable rate to put down payments on things, to buy other properties. A lot of people leveraged a cottage against their house. And then, of course, we had the Bank of Canada do those huge, I think there's 11 price increases in a row, interest rate increases. A lot of people that bought in 2020 then have to renew their cottage, like their home, around 2025. And when you go from, 1.5% interest rate to say 6%, 5.5 to 7, depending on where you are financially, that is a huge jump in the amount of your monthly payment. So you may be paying all of a sudden, $2,000 to $5,000 more a month than you had planned on. People are also just generally, panicking this summer. We've got all these tariff things, and I think, in my opinion, I don't think the tariffs really directly affect home ownership. I think that people emotionally have just felt so out of sorts with what's going on in Canada and the tariffs and everything, and they're just panicking. And then the next part to that is that we have this kind of investor market where a lot of people were, offsetting the price of their cottage by using Airbnb, short-term rentals, that kind of thing. As we're seeing our economy go deeper and deeper into recession, we're also seeing people, travel a little bit less. Maybe they don't want to spend quite as much money on an Airbnb property. Also, a lot of the lake areas, you're actually not allowed to actually Airbnb your property. And I think people, they buy them and then they don't realize right away, they've been kind of misinformed. They might be able to, they think they're going to be able to Airbnb and then they're not. And when they find out they can't do short-term rentals, rent their cottage out for the weekend, that kind of thing, it kind of destroys that opportunity for them to kind of get some offset and then still have the cottage. Now, we've seen the prices come down significantly since the pandemic. So, your high in the pandemic was around, like, say, an average of, say, $1.25 million. And that has come down in many areas, 20 to 30%. The numbers are very dramatic. The drops in cottage country prices have come down so much, and it kind of depends on the region. But some of them, 20%. There are a couple of places where the prices have actually come down as much as 50%. So now people who own the cottages are panicking because if you want to sell it, say you bought it in the pandemic for, $1.25 million, and all of a sudden your cottage is worth $900,000, but you still have this mortgage and this debt that you have to actually pay for. And now you can't maybe renew your mortgage because the bank knows that the property is worth less than you paid for it. You just can't refinance it because you can't get that much money because it was way more than you were expecting. Now your cottage is worth less. And so most likely we're going to start to see, kind of distress sales, power of sales, possibly people walking away. Now we know in the condo market, people are constantly walking away from their condo, kind of we call assignment sales or pre-construction sales that they bought ahead of time, which is obviously very different than cottages. But some of those kind of waves that are affecting that condo market are also, largely affecting the cottage market. And that's, things like money is more expensive. And these are recreation properties. So if you have to hold on to something, you're probably going to hold on to your primary residence first. and let your cottage go, which is just breaking so many people's hearts right now. I think a lot of people really wanted to hold their cottage. Now, there is one other group of people, and those are people that they wanted to get a cottage and then they realized just how much work it is. So there's so much work all the time. Every time you come up to your cottage, you have to fix things and take in the docks in the winter and winterize everything potentially, that kind of thing. So sometimes people just felt like that was a little bit too much work. So the good thing, if there's a kind of a flip side to this, is for people that, are kind of thinking, well, maybe I'm going to get into the cottage market. Well, there's definitely some places now where you're going to be able to, things becoming a little bit more affordable than they were before. Because if we take, the prices back down to, can we find you a cottage? I saw one recently that sold for $440,000 on Sparrow Lake, which was like a really, a nice, beautiful lake attached to a larger lake system. Not an extravagant cottage by any means, but a great starter cottage. So you can get in, there's prices. We're seeing some kind of in that kind of Rice Lake area up there. On those lakes, you actually have some trailers and small parks where those are selling right now for under $100,000. Then you can get into, some lots on the lake a little bit bigger that, say 4, 5, 600,000. Now that's not going to get you a palace by any means of a cottage, but you can get started. And then there are also some opportunities if you go like a little bit north, say north of Muskoka a little bit. You get into the Kawarthas, those are like less expensive areas. If you get into the three big lakes like Joe, Rosso, Muskoka, or Prince Edward County, those places are the values are still a lot higher than the other places they were in the first place. So, kind of spreading yourself out and thinking, okay, where else can we go? Getting into a cottage that's a little bit more modest, still has a beautiful lakefront, gives you the cottage experience, and then you can always build on later or just enjoy your cottage how it is. Now, if you have any questions about any of this for me, I'm happy to answer your questions for you. Please just, send me an email. The last time I did a cottage video, a whole ton of people asking, for help on can I help them with a cottage price evaluation? When do you think I should sell? What do you think is happening with this market in my particular lake? So if you'd like me to send you something about your particular lake or your particular area, please just go below. My information is there, and I would be happy to answer any questions for you.